Hey everyone, welcome back to Walt and Sarah's channel. Today we are going to be making custom chip bags. These are super awesome, super cute. They're always a hit at parties and they're pretty simple, don't require a whole lot other than a whole lot of ink out of your printer. But I'm going to show you 3 different methods to make these using 3 different types of paper. So the first one we're using here is just standard printer paper. Then the next one we're going to use is cardstock, and then the next will be the glossy paper, which is recommended by a lot of crafters for this project. And then you're going to see kind of the difficulty levels and what I struggled with using each type of paper. And then you can kind of decide which one works best for you. So one thing I will say, when I had to make a bunch of these for my nephew's birthday party, I started putting the tape on before I even started folding. Once I got kind of confident and good at it, I'll say, I didn't do just like this kind of messy method for sealing the top and bottom part. That's just me covering up my cat for a second. So once you get confident with making these, I would recommend just gluing it up or taping it up rather, before you even start folding. And it really gave it more of a consistent seal. Here I'm just trying to sneak this tool in there to put the tape in without getting it on the chips or on my hands. So I'm just trying to seal up the top here. Keep in mind, when you crimple your paper or your chip bag rather, you're going to see it kind of help it seal regardless. Those creases are going to help keep it down. You might have a little bit come undone, but that's okay because they're just going to be ripped apart anyway. So they still will have that appearance of a chip bag. But like I said, if you could get the tape down before you start folding and pressing, it makes it so much easier. But for the sake of newbies or just kind of comparing the paper types here, I figured let me just do it as basic as I can, right? So far we've taped down the chip bag, we've sealed it. There's a little crease down at the bottom. I'm going to blame it on the fact that I'm also doing this at an angle. So if you see me kind of disappear for a second, it's because to where the camera is, to where my hand needed to be, it's a little funky. So yeah, that's all that is. But here I am now placing it into our little paper crimply thing here, pressing it. And what I did was go down as far as I could. Once I could tell that I was kind of hitting the chip bag, the actual chip bag inside, I definitely stopped because we don't want to pop it. We don't want, the party goers to have open chips. They're going to be weirded out. So definitely stop as soon as you can tell that you are hitting the chip bag. And again, apologies for the angle, but off camera, I am trimming the top. You will see in about now what I did, and I'm going to try to get it more on camera this time. Using the lines that we created, I'm just trying to do like a straight line and give it that detail of the chip bags being cut off the line. So that is our first one. This one was made with just regular printer paper. Still used up a lot of ink. But that is our first one. Pretty easy peasy. Only takes maybe 5 minutes at the most, start to finish. I didn't speed up the camera at all here. I'm just letting it go, letting it roll, so you're kind of getting a live action view of how long it takes to make these. So if I didn't explain well before, what I do is I put down just that slight line of tape on the front of the chip bag, and that helps it from wiggling around. The only problem is once you put it down on your paper, you'll see it's kind of low. It's not in the center. Not a huge deal, but once it touches that paper, it's kind of stuck there. So you have to be super careful if you are going to do that. But I will say it makes it so much easier when you're trying to fold to just have it in place and not have to worry about the chip bag wiggling its way out. And so I'll also add, you would think using the cardstock would be harder than using the paper one. I always say like, oh, it's so much easier to just do these on plain printer paper. This is my first time using cardstock, and I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit easier than using just the plain printer paper because that was almost too flimsy. It was almost too flexible. Even though it worked, it kind of, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. It just wasn't as easy as the cardstock was. So again, this part is a little unorganized here where I'm trying to tape it on the inside there. It definitely works the way I'm doing it now, but if you make a few of these and you feel good about knowing where the glue, or I keep saying glue, but where the tape would go, I would recommend just go ahead and tape it down, because as you can see, we already have a little pocket here popped open at the, well, it's technically the bottom, but it's the top for us right now, but you can see it already popped open. So I'm going to try to seal it back up before I go and press it. So I also have to add that I'm super new using this paper crimple mechanism here. Usually in the past I've used a cheaper, it's actually like a heat activated crimpler, but I just don't use the heat part. Obviously I would leave it unplugged and not hot, and I would just use that to press really hard to make my lines. Honestly, this works so much better. Somebody asked me what tools to use, and I sent them a link and noticed that this particular item was $5 off. So obviously we're not going to let a good sale go to waste. So I ended up buying the proper tool. So I'm super new to this. I tried following the directions. It says to open up the handles and then put your paper in there and then twist it. However, even my 8-year-old came up behind me and said, "Oh, Mom, I don't do it that way." So rather than sit there and try to fight with trying to open it with one hand, put the chip bag through with the other hand, I decided to just use her method and just push it in there and start twisting. And honestly, it worked so much better. It just cut out one extra step and made it a lot faster. So last but not least, we are using our glossy photo paper. Now this one I had to print out 3 different times. The first time, I didn't realize I didn't have the settings changed. The second time, I changed the settings in my printer to, it said glossy 2, using the Canon printer. That was not the correct one. There was another setting that just said photo paper, and that is the one that I needed to use. So I finally printed it out, wasted a whole bunch of ink, awesome sauce, but look how bright it is and look how vibrant. It's really nice. It looks so good in person and on camera. You can see the shininess, the light reflecting, a little bit of a pain in the tush to work with, but it looks good at least, right? You got to give it to it. It's so much brighter than the other ones. Now these are just for my family and I, for Father's Day this Sunday. So that's why I'm not really stressing about them being too perfect. I do want to show you guys how I make them and some kind of like tips. Really, it's just getting comfortable with it. You know, maybe like your first 2, just plan on hiding them in the back of the pack if you're taking them to a party. But they are a lot of fun to make. And of course, you know, designing them is lots of fun. This design I ended up getting off of Etsy, but they had a QR code on the back of like their personal Instagram page, and I really wasn't feeling that, so that's why I covered it up with the chip type for the inside of our fancy bags. We have the Lay's chips inside, so I did edit that just to cover up their QR code. I didn't really like the fact that I had to pay for it, and it just took people to like their personal Instagram. Kind of weird, but anyway. So while I'm cutting here, if you could give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. And that's about it for the glossy one. So you can see it looks pretty good. Now Walt came home as I was recording this and he goes, "Oh, look at these. They have like that vintage look." I'm like, "Yeah, but that wasn't intentional." So you can kind of see the first one there was our printer paper. This is our cardstock, and here is our glossy. In my opinion, I like the cardstock. I think it looks really good, and then the just the feel of it feels a lot nicer. Unfortunately, glossy paper left some residue on my hands. I'm not a huge fan of it, honestly, but I do like the cardstock, and of course, the regular paper is so easy to work with. So what do you think? Which one is your favorite? Which one was the easiest?